All right, we're going to get started on our restaurants and tech panel. My name is Carey Polis. I'm the digital director of Bon Appetit magazine, so anything sort of related to internet, social media, podcasts, that's sort of my territory. And I'm really excited to have everyone here today. This is an amazing group of panelists. To my right, we have Soa Davies. She was formerly the executive chef of Maple, the food delivery service, and now oversees all food and beverage for André Balazs Properties. Yusha is the founder and CEO of Local Bushel, an online marketplace for restaurants to buy food from local farms. Local Bushel sources produce, harvest to order, and uses customs logistics software to manage a seamless and reliable experience. Alex Barrotti is the CEO and founder of TouchBistro restaurant iPad POS solutions. TouchBistro launched in 2011 as a pioneering and mobile technology for restaurants. Michael Anthony is the executive chef of Gramercy Tavern, which currently has 3 stars from the New York Times. And he's won James Beard Awards for Outstanding Restaurant, Best Chef in New York City, and Outstanding Chef. No big deal. And Michael Chernow is the owner of Seamore's in Nolita and Chelsea and the co-founder of the Meatball Shop. So to get started, I'm going to ask kind of a big question, because I think there's a lot of ways we can take this conversation. So what do you guys think the biggest piece or category of technology has made the biggest impact on dining in the past, let's say 5 years? What's changed the most?
I can tell you that the area that has changed the most is probably not the area that I work in personally. So I can give a negative answer. Like when our company started 3.5 years ago, I remember sitting in a very popular Brooklyn restaurant with the chef owner, asking how he orders the ingredients for his menu. And he showed me this like pale yellow piece of paper with a grid that said things like broccoli, 26, kale, 34. And I was like, what does that mean? How much broccoli are you getting? Like, what does it look like? What does it taste like? He's like, I don't know. And then you would just call and leave a voicemail somewhere and hope that somebody transcribed that correctly and it would arrive the next day. And that was actually probably the better version of how things work, because chefs also just make a phone call with no list or pricing and then find out how much it costs when it arrives, and then the price changes every week. And so the ordering in the back of house, the kitchen side of the restaurant, I think has really not had a lot of technology penetrate how things work. And I think that over the next 5 years, you'll probably see huge changes in this area as online ordering becomes a big deal and transparency becomes a big deal.
I really hope so, because overseeing multiple outlets and multiple restaurants in each outlet, inventory management is a big issue at all of the hotel properties especially. And what's coming in, what's going out, who's ordering what, how it's getting checked in. It's kind of a nightmare every single day, trying to figure out what arrived, what didn't arrive, and then how much food you're wasting because you don't know what came in.
Somebody out there needs to come up with a back-of-house inventory digitized
Yes,
system.
absolutely.
Have you guys seen any positive change in this area?
Well, in reservations, I think, is the biggest positive tech advancement in the restaurant as far as anything else, because I feel restaurants have stayed pretty stagnant as in terms of, like, it's basically people wanting to come into a warm, inviting space to have good food and be waited on and have a wonderful experience. And in that, there's always going to be that human touch. So trying to figure out a efficient back of the house system in order to make that human touch even better and more seamless would be an amazing boost for the restaurant industry.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. I think from my experience in growing a restaurant group, obviously I agree absolutely that the area that's been impacted mostly is in the front of the house operations. But what I will say is that it's allowed, just like social media, for instance, has allowed restaurants to now have a mouthpiece without spending an enormous amount of money on marketing, because typically you look at a restaurant P&L, marketing, if there is a line item for it, is very, very small. It's very, very small, just because there's not a lot of money to spend in restaurants. So social media has made a massive impact, and obviously that's tech. And so social media has made a massive impact in restaurants, and it's sort of, restaurants have gone viral via social media. But I also think that what we're traditionally used to spending in restaurants, point of sale systems, being $30,000 to $40,000 based on the amount of terminals you have in a restaurant.
Or even 90 if you're in a big restaurant.
Right, if you're a big restaurant. Now that there's and I was nervous to step into the non-hardwired point of sale system, the tablet systems, until I felt super duper confident that something works, and I did take the leap, and it's been amazing. And I've taken, now when I factor the opening budget of a restaurant, it's $20,000 to $30,000 less, which is significant in our world, because if you've got a 10 restaurant plan over a 5-year period of time, you're saving a significant amount of cash in point of sale. And there are those point of sales that are also integrating with reservation systems, scheduling with budgeting available. Typically you write a schedule out on an Excel spreadsheet, and you have a plan to fit your budget into that. Now there's scheduling software that you push one button, it blasts it out to the whole team. You're able to input your budget. I mean, it's pretty spectacular. So I think, the impact that it has, and that does certainly affect back of house as well. The hard part is we all assume that everybody that works in a restaurant has computers and iPhones and smartphones, and that's not the case. Not everybody has all that equipment to be able to easily access that stuff. So I agree. I think over the next few years we're going to see a little bit more, but it's deeply impacted. I get a phone call 3 times a day or an email about some new technology that's coming out.
Well, I'm glad to hear someone besides me realizes the importance of the point of sale part. But the one that surprises me that I've seen the biggest sort of rise, and rightly or wrongly or good or bad, I'm not totally always sure, it's just the rise of the online ordering ability. Like, whether it's Ritual or Seamless or Uber Eats or whatever, it's the whole concept of like, if it comes to me instead of me going to it. Like whether and we see this in our office all day long. Fridays we give every staff member a credit for them to order whatever they want, and they all go out on their phones. Like right at 11:30, you see we start punching away, and it just becomes habitual, right? And it's I think it's cool. But it's amazing how it really becomes one app we use called Ritual becomes like Ritual. You do it every single time. You get addicted to it. Whether it's 3 a.m, whatever, you make delivery. Whether it's great food every time, it's certainly not gourmet every time, but it's convenient, right? And I think that's really affecting society in a lot of ways, because a lot of people there's less people cooking, for example, right? Or pursuing that avenue because it's just so convenient.
I think it's so hard for me because I've essentially born and raised into the restaurant industry. I got my first job in a restaurant when I was 13, and I'm like an advocate for anything that anybody wants to do in the restaurant space. I think it's all beautiful and incredible, but the human element is massive for me. The experience, the memory, the creation of memories are huge, and the further we veer away from that, the harder it is for me to be super stoked about creating more, because I feel like the technology that we bring in is there to make it more efficient, not to remove the like amazing element of a smile and a thank you. You know what I mean? Like, that is what a restaurant is, in my opinion. It's like, if you're not selling your culture, which is what I think we sell. I mean, food and beverage is food and beverage, but like, people come because they want to be a part of the culture. And I love the fact that we can broaden our spread our wings outside of the 4 walls in the restaurant and have the Seamlesses of the world and stuff like that, which is incredible. It helps us out business-wise. But if 50% of the people that were coming into the restaurant start using those avenues, it's difficult, you know?
I don't go to restaurants that have no, sitting on it. Like I know ghost restaurants, what's called, like where
Yeah.
no one goes to them, but they exist only on the benefit of online order and delivery, right? And that's not the reason I go to a restaurant. I go to a restaurant, just, to sit, to enjoy the company, to enjoy who I'm with, to enjoy my friend's company, and most importantly is the quality of the food, right? Because I get asked all the time, what's the one thing we should focus on the most? And from a tech side, and I go, your food, right? Because if the food is no good, I will not come back. The coolest restaurant I've been to, kiosk ordering, tablet ordering, whatever, all this future tech, but if the food's no good, I'm certainly never going to come back or recommend it to anyone else. Right?
It's interesting. I mean, I'm literally sitting in between the 2 points of this conversation and living this daily at a restaurant like Gramercy Tavern, where it is a restaurant that concentrates on creating those memories, but is constantly thinking about living up to people's expectations, contemporary expectations. We talk about on a daily basis the timing of when that check can hit the table. We're pushing forward with auto pay so that we can create an act of hospitality by actually matching guests' expectations, current expectations for the time that they have to spend on lunch. We see that as both an opportunity and a big challenge.
I was saying, I think that's what separates restaurants from just having lunch or just ordering something in is it's experiential versus transactional. And when you're just ordering from a Ritual or a Seamless or Grubhub or even from Maple, some aspect of it could be experiential, but often it's transactional because you're literally ordering something off of a pad, something in front of you off of a computer. So you're not getting a lot of experience or any kind of emotional value from it. Whereas if you're going to Gramercy Tavern, you are going there for the experience, the emotional boost of sitting around the table with your friends and family. And so I think that's truly what separates restaurants and how restaurants will evolve and continue forward, rather than like focusing so much on whether or not they need to be using the next tool or be very cool about what technology they're using.
What about how the dining room has changed? So you've talked about how you're trying to create this experience, but now you have a diner, many of whom are probably addicted to their smartphones, or they really want to get that perfect Instagram shot, even if the lighting isn't ideal. Like, how do you respond to provide the amazing hospitality experience that still is valuable when maybe the diner isn't the same type of person they were 5 years ago?
Well, I think that it is obvious that the exchange of information and the way restaurants perceive it has generally transformed. Took us a long time, but has completely transformed in looking at that as a complete opportunity, a way to communicate with our guests. If we look at within our restaurant group, we've made a complete shift to the time and effort and resources that we spend towards social media as opposed to traditional PR and marketing. We are so much more active in thinking about how we can communicate what we're doing and really continue to say who we are through those social media channels. And that happens in real time. So if you're sitting at the bar at Gramercy Tavern and you take a picture of the Fall Classic and you're like, I've come to get my fix. I'm here for my favorite cocktail. We actually really want to respond to that in real time while you're still sitting at the bar. And I'm sure that you guys do that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's that sort of engagement is, it make or breaks like an experience. I wouldn't say break an experience, but it certainly makes an experience. If you're at a restaurant and you comment on something and the restaurant fires back a comment right back to you, it's like one of those things that's like, that's like the real like trophy.
Right.
Yeah, that's what
Being
that.
super proactive.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, Gramercy Tavern. I just want to give you that independent. I'm not you need it.
I think everybody across the globe
everyone
does.
loves. Yeah, and I go there not just but for the ambiance, and that's why you don't want to lose the sort of the experience of the restaurant is not something that just right. Because again, it's the liveliness, the excitement of being there, and all that stuff. But user user experience that we think about all day long, actually, from our side. Because when we started pushing, like the tablet at the table, for example, going mobile, we've spent a lot of time researching how long you actually spend in the restaurant, right? And so we did simple math. Like if you've got a party of 20, right, and you're taking the order old school, pen and paper, and you're going person to person to person, there's 20 people, it's about an average 1 minute per person to take that order. Then, so 20 minutes has elapsed, and the first person hasn't received anything to eat or drink. But that affects your experience at the restaurant, right? Then they go and enter into the point of sale, hopefully without any errors. And then it gets sent out, and then the food, 25 minutes later, might arrive, right? And you're sitting there going, wow, service is terrible, but they're oblivious to the fact that they're the cause of that sort of delay, right? And they take it on the restaurant, perhaps, or the waiter. But it's just so that was one of the reasons why we said a mobile experience would make everything better. Like we've seen restaurants that adopt it like wholeheartedly. First they're like, no way, we're never doing this. But then they realize that they can take the order while they're at the table. And then what happens is, a food runner or a drink runner starts bringing the food while the waiter's still at the table. So you've gotten rid of the inefficiencies of the process without affecting because that needs a finite experience. Like you're saying, you only have an hour before you have to catch a movie or the sitter or whatever, right? So all of that, and then we've all been to restaurants, it takes an hour to get in and half an hour to leave even after the meal, right? Because you're like trying to flag the waiter down to pay, so like you said, trying to get auto payment. Or I think Open Table's got a cool system where they put the credit card attached to the reservation, so you can, at the end of it, you can say, okay, I'm done, and just walk out. All that affects your dining experience, irrespective of how the quality of the food, right?
I think for me as an operator, I think the biggest challenge, especially on a busy night in the restaurant, is the finale, the getting the check, the running the credit card, the getting the credit card back, that whole process. That could tag on some time. If you're really good, maybe that process takes 5 minutes. If you're not really good, it could take 45 minutes.
Yeah, and that can ruin the experience or the meal, because you could have a fantastic meal experience, everything was awesome, but if you need to go and it takes you half an hour to get, like you're going to leave a negative rating, even.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, but there has not been, and I've got my ear to the pavement on a product that seamlessly allows the diner to walk in without having to use Open Table, to walk in and be able to pay at the table. There's been so many, it's like a rat race, and I've explored a lot of these options, and there's been nothing. I actually invested in a group that, very small investment, but I invested in a group that I thought was going to rise to the occasion and do it. Because it's such a crucial. If my turn time in a restaurant is 60 minutes, and that's not having auto pay, if I can shave that down to 55 minutes or 50 minutes, that's massive over the course of a year in business with a number of restaurants. And so I think that's going to be ultimately, seamless. The reason why seamless and the reason why Uber's taken off so well is that there's no transaction. You walk in, you walk in the car, you walk out of the car, you push it, you order what you want. There's no money exchanging hands. I think that there is a way to do it in the restaurant space. I just don't know how. Beacon technology potentially. That everybody's been playing around with this beacon technology. You walk in the restaurant, you got the app open, it tags you. You got to see. It's like there's a lot.
The psychology also clearly works. So I recently had dinner in a very nice restaurant. A very expensive dining experience, and the fact that I paid for the meal ahead of time took the sting out of the moment that usually comes when that check arrives. Not that I wasn't aware of how much I spent, but there is a relaxing effect.
How did you go through Open Table?
It was a restaurant that uses Talk.
Yeah, I'm on the fence on this whole prepaid experience, because I get to fortunately eat a lot of you name it restaurants, and I've been to a couple that you prepaid that were outstanding, and I've been to one that I don't want to say what it is, but I prepaid and it was the worst meal in my life, right? And what do you do about it? Nothing, because you've already prepaid, you got suckered into the hype, and like, oh no, we're
What would you have done though? You would have not paid?
No, obviously not.
This thing sucks. I'm out of here.
Obviously not. But how do you how do you like say, like if someone provides you terrible service, you can reflect on the tip,
Totally.
right? Whereas like, okay, so I prepaid, I've pre-done this, I've pre-done everything, and then anymore it's like, well, if you don't show up, we're gonna bill you for the entire meal as if you were here, and their answer was like, well, because it's like going to the theater. I was like, no, going to the theater, I'm taking someone's seat, right? And the performance will go on without me. You didn't cook the food, you didn't make the food, you didn't do all that stuff.
See, but the truth is that like I agree with you. I think to an extent, but I think that it's like any change in any situation, in any industry, with a family, with anything, change for whatever reason, like disrupts things and it shakes things up and it rocks the cradle. And anytime something changes, it's like when there was a cork shortage and people were twisting bottles of, like caps off a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
I remember I was working in a wine bar and that started to happen and people looked at me like, I'm spending $75 on that bottle of wine. There's no cork? And I'd be like, man, I didn't make it. You know what I mean? Like, just like it, but like people don't like change, period. They just don't like change. And so, anytime you change we were having a conversation yesterday, like any sort of change it's disruptive. And until, people, it's so funny. In my lifetime, it was like, I was born in 1980. Credit cards were like not happening a lot, right? So there was a lot of cash, then credit cards happened, and then people got all snuffy about credit cards, and then now restaurants aren't taking cash.
Yeah, completely opposite.
They're not taking cash. And by the way, not taking cash is amazing.
Totally.
It's incredible. One of my restaurants got robbed at gunpoint in Williamsburg 3 months ago. Why? Because there's cash in the restaurant, And so you mitigate cash. You mitigate you definitely add a level of safety in the restaurant, but the manager responsibility pre-shift, post-shift is so much less, and they're you're not putting a world of fear into somebody if they got handling thousands of dollars of cash late.
But internally and externally, I would argue, because there's no employee theft, there's nothing to take, right? We've seen, being in the point of sale business, we see fraud on all levels, right? Both internal and external. And so not having cash, there's no temptation to dip into the box, right? Yeah. Or my favorite is like when, the bartender's at the bar and two young ladies walk in and the guy says, hey ladies, these drinks are on me. Well, they're never on him, right? Ever. Just literally stole them from the restaurant and just gave it to him to look at, right?
That was my move.
That was your move? I've seen that move. Not on me, of course, but I've seen that move 1,000 times, right?
Let's talk a little bit about data. You've talked about kind of wanting to optimize an experience for the customer. How much do you know about the customer as a result of technology? I know that Gramercy Tavern has a pretty intense reservation system about guests, whether VIPs or not, and in general, when someone's walking in the door, what do you already know about them? What can you learn about them, and how is technology assisting with that?
I'll just kick it up a little bit because I think at Gramercy Tavern we have the best of both worlds in that for a long while we thought we were far ahead of the game in terms of using open table and systems within the restaurant to take notes not only internally within the restaurant but to share them within our restaurants, and these are all very professional comments and helpful pieces of information that are all objective and help to either move an experience along or to just meet, hopefully exceed guests' expectations. It's coupled with an incredible effort behind the scenes that is more traditional than progressive, of just folks using great communication skills and memory and engaging and really paying close attention to getting to know the people that we serve. So in some ways, I think for a long while we've moved far ahead of the curve, and we realized that we're about to face yet a completely new era that we have to figure out somehow how to make a completely genuine act of hospitality out of utilizing new technology.
What about how technology has changed the actual food on our plate that we're eating at restaurants? how has that impacted either taste or the way it's gotten to our plates, things like that?
I mentioned earlier that we're really just starting to see online ordering in food distribution, which reached the consumer space a long time ago. But even now with a regular food distributor, which is who sells to the restaurant, you can often see a product that is double the price of something else, and it looks the same, you're getting the same amount of it, and you don't know why. So I think that technology by itself, without information about your supply chain, doesn't really help. Beyond just making it a little bit faster to place the order, a little bit more accurate to place the order. So I think that the next wave, which hopefully we're on the forefront of, is like, for example, we take photos of products as they're being packed and harvested, so it replicates the farmer's market experience. You can see what you're getting. And it's farmer profiles for every product that we get. And the idea is you want to use technology to help add data and add transparency, but you have to have the data. If it's not starting at the restaurant, being collected at the restaurant, you have to be somebody who can provide it to them, which means you have to have it yourself.
You know, like what I was saying earlier, like, is there too much of an emphasis on like time to delivery? Like, you know, like this thing about Domino's 30 minutes or 20 minutes or less, or getting there as fast as possible. Like there was a previous panelist said that they cooked the pizza on the way in the car, right? Again, it's the focus is on the time and delivery, not on the quality of the food. So like, I'll give you a little example. So actually I was in Japan earlier this year with my family, and we were walking around Kyoto, which by the way is a beautiful place, and probably one of my favorite places to be. So we went into this, we had to stop in for lunch, and then we went to a place that was making tempura. And it was just a hole in the wall, right? And we said, hi, we don't order 3 tempuras. And the gentleman said, okay, it's going to take half an hour. And we're like, half an hour? Like, I'm used to like the sort of fast food here, like 5 minutes kind of thing. It's like half an hour, and they're like, why does it take so long? I said, we make it from scratch every time. So we're like, okay, we'll wait. It was the best tempura I ever had in my life, right? I would gladly fly back to Japan and wait half an hour just to have this. It was unbelievable, and I will always remember that experience versus like, hey, we got it in 5 minutes, but it was terrible. I'll still remember that too, right? But again, the emphasis has become on speed, time, delivery, technology. But as a person who gets to eat out almost all the time, I still think that the most important aspect is the food itself, and you can't lose track of that, because when we see restaurants turn over or go out of business, they don't go out of business because of the technology, they go out of business because of the food or the service, or they focused on the wrong things. As much as I agree with you, having an extra $30,000 to market your restaurant is fantastic. But also put some of that back into the quality of the food, right?
Well, I think I talked about how there's some areas of the restaurant where technology is lagging behind the technology sector, especially consumer facing. But I think that delivery on the back of house side, like delivery logistics, is actually way ahead of where consumers were. Like before Amazon Prime came in to like what became an everyday use, restaurants had already had experiences where you could order like 5 times the size of what a normal grocery purchase would be, order at 11 o'clock at night, and it would arrive at your restaurant door at 7 o'clock the next morning, and it would be complete. And so the idea of like very fast turnaround and logistics being the strength actually, I think, defined restaurant distribution for the last few decades. And I think that, we're doing this, I guess you can still call it an experiment, where we're actually going the opposite way. And we're saying, let's slow it down a little bit, and after you order, we're gonna send the order to the farmer. They're gonna bring it and take it out of the field and pack it that day, and then get it to you the day after. And it makes you wait a whole day for your product, but it eliminates any waste, because you aren't holding product, and it eliminates all the cost of the warehouse, and it gets you a product that's a lot fresher. So I think that on the logistics side, there's still room for innovation, even when you feel like you're actually ahead of what's conventional.
Okay, we've talked about things that you want to see that you don't in the restaurant. So pretend it's 20 years from now, and you can design the restaurant of the future. What does it have, and what looks different than now?
So I'll be the first to say
And money's no object for this exercise.
So first, I want to be the first to say that I don't think, I was in a panel 2 weeks ago in San Francisco, and one person was arguing that restaurants are disappearing, that the whole online ordering thing is going to eventually take over. And I said, I do not want to live in that world. I do not want to live in a world where I just push a button and things get sent to me. I like the whole social aspect I like interacting, talking to people, being out. Like I said, there's no way restaurants are going away because they've been here for hundreds of years and they're not going away. Not because obviously online ordering isn't having its effect on malls, and we are seeing that effect on things like Amazon taking over and malls are closing, but it's a whole different experience, right?
It's an experience,
Like, it's an
not a
experience,
commodity.
exactly. Like I go to eat for the experience. Yes, I do want my Amazon delivery the next day because I need it so bad, right? But I don't. I do want to go out. Certainly, technology will continue to create. It will perfect the payment aspect of it, but at what cost? Because then there goes your anonymity, right? Like for me to know what I came in, I get this asked all the time. Hey, I want to know what the last time they were here, and we collect a ton of this data, right? We have over 10,000 restaurants, so we collect billions of dollars annual of like transaction volume and habits and things like that. But at the same time, I might just want to go out with my friends and have dinner. I don't want to like always be sitting there going, oh, the last time you were here, you had this exact same thing, and like like a Minority Report style existence.
So you don't want anything to change?
No, I do want things to get better, but not at the sake of completely giving up my identity in other cases, right?
I think at the end of the day, and this is something that a former boss told me that I never forgot, like early on in my career, and this guy said to me, Mike, what's everybody's favorite word? And I was like, I don't know. He was like, their name, their own name. It's their favorite word. They want to hear their name all day long. Like they just want to hear their name. So if somebody walks through the door in the restaurant and you're like, John, what's going on? Like you just made that guy's night, And I don't think that's going anywhere. I really don't. I just don't. Like I feel like maybe somebody comes up with a really cool, creative way to make the delivery experience as good. Like you open up the bag and like somebody jumps out, and, shakes your hand and says thanks so much, and then splits. Like that'd be cool. But like I don't think that human engagement, that like our mission at Seamore's is our number one priority is to make people extraordinarily happy. Like that is it. Food and beverage, amazing. Service, amazing. Our goal as business people and hospitalians is to make people extraordinarily happy. And I think that you can make people, you can satisfy people through a delivery experience. I don't think that you are making people extraordinarily happy through a delivery experience and or an automated experience. I feel like that, call me old school. I'm not an old guy. I think the experience that one creates when you are passionate about creating experiences in a restaurant, which is what I am, and I'm sure a bunch of, I know Michael is, and when you're passionate about that, all the other stuff is incredible, and I embrace it, and I'm super excited about ways to make our guests feel like we're staying ahead of the curve, and like they can rely on us to be a part of this like wave of newness and coolness. But like there has to be I see that the experience becoming more seamless, but I certainly don't see it going anywhere.
Convenient. Like you said the one word that we all define this industry by, which is the hospitality industry, which in that word it means service, right? It's not, we're in the food industry, right? So again, you go to restaurants for the service and the food and the experience and the ambiance and the people you're with. And so until the day, like you said, like a Bushel button, Michael appears at my house with all his support staff and food and everything else.
Mm-hmm. I'm working on it.
He cooks and that'll be the next, Uber chef comes over and delivers everything. You're like, and that's just not practical from a cost standpoint.
I think right? At the, also there's this idea that and I know because I'm a culprit, I have some favorite restaurants, that I go to. I think most people have a 5-restaurant cluster, totally. And then there's 3 or 4 that they hit once a quarter, once every 6 months. And the 5-restaurant cluster is really hard to break into. It's really hard. It's most people are creatures of habit, and they have their restaurants, they have them for a long time, and it's hard to get out of that. And by the way, some of those restaurants that are in my cluster aren't I'm not blown away every time I go there, but I'm treated so well there. Yep. And I love the people so much there that if I get if I order a thing of blistered shishito peppers and 10 of the 12 are spicy and hot, I'm not gonna be oh my god, these guys suck. You know, like they like smile and tell me, you know, that they're excited to see me, and I genuinely feel that. And I think that that is ultimately what takes a good restaurant to great, in my opinion. You know, I think that service and hospitality is the cornerstone of all successful restaurants, and that's why the Union Square Hospitality Group, in my opinion, has paved the way for guys like me, you know, across the globe. Because you go to a Union Square Hospitality restaurant, and it's like on any other. It's iconic and sets the tone for everyone else.
So any final thoughts on the restaurant of the
Well,
future?
the restaurant of the future, hopefully, I think, just touching on what Michael said about the experience and just knowing someone's name, I think there could be a missing component where someone could develop personalization, where when people walk into a restaurant, it would be wonderful to know, oh, it's Mr. So-and-so, and they've been here so many times, and he likes Pinot Noir from the Burgundy region rather than the Willamette Valley, and we're going to tell him about what we just got in from the Burgundy region. And I think that, like, personalization in restaurants could become more and more impactful, and also it adds to the experiential part of the whole hospitality feeling. And that's what Union Square does so well. And just Gramercy Tavern, if you walk in, or even kind of any good restaurant where it's your top 5 restaurants, you go there often enough, and Michael walks in and they know that Michael likes this cocktail made this way and chilled just to this temperature. That could be what really makes that experience to the next level, in my opinion.
So we're gonna now move on to questions. So raise your hand if you got something.
This is a question for, I guess it could be for any of you guys, but Michael, I want to say I'm a big fan of Seamore's, and most importantly, what you guys are doing there, the approach you're taking to sourcing the food locally, not always serving the biggest name brand fish out there, but what's available and what tastes good. So my question, I guess, for all you guys, but also just for you, is in terms of using the technology to educate the eater in your restaurant, because a lot of, like, I just popped up your menu while you guys were talking, and to serve sea robin, it's not a fish people are going to buy, it's not a fish people are going to eat, but how is the technology playing a part in educating those people to get excited about what you put on the plate and not just serving them what they want to see?
We sold out of Sea Robin last night. We haven't actually. I've got an old school approach to the educational aspect. I think education, specifically in a space that I'm sort of entered in the sustainable seafood world, is really tricky. People don't want to walk into a restaurant and feel like they're like walking into a chemistry or biology class. So we keep it super light, and we are working on building a more robust platform for the people that are actually interested and want to be a bigger part of it. That will be a widget on our website that you can, there's now all these crazy new systems where people are like tracking the fish from wild, cool stuff. But I think you got to be really, really into it to want to be a part of it. If you walk into a Seamore's and you look up on the daily landings board, that's our form of saying, hey, we're educating, and it lists all the different species of fish that we've worked with, and majority of the people that are coming to the restaurant are super excited to explore today, which is rare for the industry. I think we're sort of seeing more exploratory diners, but it just talks about the different species and the characteristics that you can expect. The education was the scariest part for me, taking a risk with serving local sustainable fish, because most people have not had dogfish or porgy or blackfish, or it's like it's new stuff. I think building out a platform for people to if they're interested on the website to say, hey, like, read about this, read about what's happening, because it all is really interesting stuff. We haven't tapped into any real technology to help educate yet.
we obviously also work with a lot of restaurants that source farm transparent food. And when I go out to eat, like my cluster of 5, I grew up with Chinese parents who, like, anytime we went to a buffet, they were like, eat the seafood, eat the high value ingredients, like, don't fill up on like French fries. So like, I feel like I love ingredient driven menus where I feel like I know that the source is something that I can get behind and is gonna taste great, and they're not hiding the quality of the ingredients through technique. And so I find that the most effective way when I go to new restaurants and I look at menus, I love looking for farm names, and I love looking for like the type of ingredient. Like, I can get that a chef is excited about seasonal food or is an ambitious ingredient-driven chef when I see like maybe like watermelon radish instead of regular radish, or that the ingredients are generally items that I can see at the farmer's market that week. I think that the education is, as Mike said, like not really technology today, because you don't want to like have somebody open a website for you and like show you all the background. There's too much to know. You're there for an experience. But I do think that it's important for restaurateurs to communicate what they're doing and make their customers feel like they trust the integrity of where that what that restaurant's intentions are.
Time for one more question. Sir in the back, I saw your hand first.
Hi,
Can you use the mic actually so everybody can hear it? I'll come back to you, excuse me. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. To the point of high value ingredients, especially for the chefs, can you touch on, is there any pushback? Let's take dogfish, for example. If you put a smaller portion of the dogfish on the plate with the high value, sourced locally vegetables, are you hearing from the customers that a 3-ounce portion isn't making it? Because I think that the opportunity to make the dogfish last longer so that it doesn't take the same course that Chilean sea bass is taking, which was very hot in the 90s and now is gone. Is there customer response to smaller portions of protein?
I think it's an important point that you bring up in a hot topic. And I think that from my perspective, and I'd be really curious to hear from all of yours, I think that there is a huge opportunity there for us to consider the proportion of foods that we eat. If we think about what the iconic American meal, if you close your eyes and imagine what that looks like on the plate, we're raised to see a certain image. First of all, we see a plate. What if we looked at that a little bit differently? What if instead of a plate, we might see a bowl? And instead of that dogfish or whatever the protein may be, being that beautiful centerpiece that's glistening and shining and a little brown with something yummy underneath it, what if all of a sudden we see that with, a foundation of a bed of grains or beans, rice, and then a wide variety of delicious, beautiful, nutritious foods that enhance eating a smaller portion of that. I think that the door is wide open for us to do that, and especially within this market. I think it might be a little different story when you leave a large urban market, but we're here, and we all have something interesting to say about that, as long as there's value. I mean, the reality of it is that
Exactly.
the radish, the turnips, whatever those beautiful ingredients are that we identify with as kind of representing something distinctively from here. I'm speaking to the choir in this room, but this is a story that I think we all have to embrace. You're pointing at something that is a real opportunity for all of us that create and sell food.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for coming. This was really informative. I think we could have had 3 more hours, so thanks everyone.